Hello, everybody. This is Ryan Shields, and I am the youth minister here at St. Joseph's. This is our week 2 confirmation video. This week, we're going to look into the question, why am I here? Now, it's not just the simple, why am I here watching this video right now type question. It's more of like the overarching, why are we here? Why did God make us? What is our purpose kind of question. So, why are we here? We're here to learn about God. We're here in this class, we're here watching this video so we can learn about God. But why are we here? Why are we on earth? We're going to tackle that question right here and right now. Sometimes we all get to a point when we're just like, I don't get it. Why am I here? Why would God want me here? Sometimes we're dealing with self-confidence issues. Sometimes we're dealing with problems in our homes, problems at school, and we just get to we get to this self-negative or negative self-imagery. Like, why am I here? Why, am I loved? Should I be here? We ask ourselves all these questions. And those are natural questions to ask. Because I think we all have that doubt in our hearts of, well, why would God put me here? Why did God make me? And I think the answer is quite simple. You see, back in the day, they had the Baltimore Catechism. And in the Baltimore Catechism, they had this question and answer thing where they'd go back and forth and they would ask common questions that people had or common objections that people had, and they would answer those questions or answer those objections. One of the first questions they asked is, why was I made? Why did God make me? And the answer was to know God, to love God, and to serve God here on earth so that I could be with Him forever in the next. And that's still, to this day, my favorite answer. You see, it doesn't go into the depth maybe that we need it to sometimes, but that surface value, that initial gut check that it gives us is exactly what we need to hear sometimes. Why are we here? Well, God made us so that we can know Him, love Him, serve Him in this life, and then be with Him forever in the next. It's that simple. So we got to go back a little bit more, right? Why did God create the world? Well, God, in and of Himself, doesn't need anything more. You see, He's the Alpha, the Omega. He's the beginning and the end. He's all powerful. He has all these different attributes, right? But He still wanted creation. He still wanted to create. He created the earth. He filled it with things, and He filled it with animals. But He still felt empty. Why? Because there's this natural emptiness. When you crave to be loved, and you don't have someone loving you. And an animal, no matter how much it loves you, and no matter how much affection it shows to you, is not the same as general, authentic human love. You see, what finally made it click was God making a being that had free will to love Him back. Now, the only way that works is if we can choose not to love Him, right? So God gave us this free will so that we could choose to love Him, but we can also choose not to. So back to the why am I here? Well, God made you so that you can know Him, get to know Him, so that you can love Him with your whole heart, give everything to Him, and to serve Him on this life so that you can be with Him forever in the next. Now, I know. You're sitting there and you're thinking, I get it, Ryan, but how does that work for me? Let me tell you. You see, when you were in the womb, when God had made you, when you were in your mother's womb, He knew you then. You see, I have a 1-month-old baby, and little Alex, he doesn't know anything really. He knows mom because she feeds him and gives him comfort. He knows dad, and he knows his little brother, or he knows his big brothers, right? He kind of watches them when they come around close. But there's no depth of knowledge there. And I know him as he is now, but I don't know who he's going to become. And I love him more than anything. You see, God, He knew Alex before I did. God knew Alex when he was still being knit together, when the cells were multiplying, when he was, developing his heart, developing his lungs, developing his brain. God knew him then as he was being knit together. And God knew him more completely than I'll ever know him. And I like to think that I know my kids pretty well, but you see, God knows us better than we know ourselves. He knows the number of hairs that we have on our heads, right? He knows us better than anything. So while we were in our mother's womb, not only did he know us, he knew who we are, but he knew who we were going to be. Remember, he is the beginning and he is the end. He is everything wrapped up into one. He sees us throughout our whole lives while we're being knit together in our mother's womb. Does that mean that he controls us and he makes us go down these paths? Right? No, it doesn't. It doesn't mean that he controls us. But it does mean that he can see. He can see already who we're going to be. And he made us so that we can choose him. And he gives us the ability to say no. And even if he knows that we might say no when we're in our mother's womb, he gives us the opportunity to live anyway. And the opportunity to choose him anyway. That's how much God loves us. He loves us. He just wants us to be with him and to make the right choices. But at the same time, we can say no. So go back to our call. Why are we here? Well, we're here because God desired to have us into this world. This all-powerful being who doesn't need anything else decided and desired to have us. And he knew us to completion from when we were in our mother's womb. He made us so that we may know him, we may love him, and we may serve him in this life, so that we could be together with him forever in the next. To know God is to love God. So those first two things go hand in hand. That's why catechism, that's why catechesis, that's why what we're doing here in confirmation is so important. Because it teaches us about who God is. And I don't want to just be superficial. I don't want it to just be a facts and figures. Because that's how my mind works sometimes. I just want to know, just tell me the facts. Just tell me who God is, tell me what I need to believe, and then I'm done. But see, our faith, our church, is so much more than just the facts and the figures. It's so much more than doctrine and teaching. All those things are very, very important. And we're going to talk about all of those things too. But if we don't start from the position of desiring God, desiring love, desiring to know God, to love him, if we don't start from that point, then anything we do after that will be fundamentally broken. God created us so that we would know him and love him and serve him in this life. What does God call us to do? What does service mean? Now, it does not mean just going to church on Sunday. It does not mean just learning the catechism. It doesn't mean just being here for classes. Serving God means to go out and make disciples of the nations. It's in the very beginning of the Catechism of the Catholic Church, the document, the book that we're going to be going over all year. In fact, I have it right here. If you don't have one of these, get it. It's the Catechism of the Catholic Church. Right? This is what we believe. In the very beginning, it tells us that we need to go out and make disciples. We need to go out and we need to teach people the Word of God. We need to teach people what the church teaches. You see, that fundamental call requires a baseline. It requires a foundation. It requires a foundation made of rock and of stone. And our relationship with God and our knowledge of him is that base. Why are we here? We're here so that we can know, love, and serve God in this life and then be with him forever on the next. God tells us that there is this narrow path, this path that leads to him. That is the path that we must embark on. That's the path that we're called down. We're not called for comfort. We're called to be challenged. We're called for more. So everybody, this week, I want you to think a little bit about why you're here. Why are you in this class? What are you trying to get out of this? Ask yourself the question about whether or not your baseline is the love and service of God. Ask yourself if you're here for the right reasons or if you're just here to punch a time clock. Because that's not what we're called for. We're not called to be here just to put in our time. We're called to love and serve God. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about our saint of the day.
Our saint of the week this week is going to be St. Paul. St. Paul's story unfolds in the Acts of the Apostles and in the letters of the New Testament. Paul, who was called Saul, was a devout Jew who initially persecuted Christians, believing that they were corrupting the Jewish faith. While he was traveling to Damascus, he had a dramatic experience of the resurrected Christ. That's going to be in the Acts of the Apostles 9, 1 through 19. This experience led him to embrace Jesus as the Messiah, and he was baptized. When the Jewish Christians doubted Paul's conversion, God sent Paul to preach the gospel to the Gentiles, or the non-Jews. He had several missionary journeys in which he traveled for years throughout the Mediterranean area, establishing churches in major cities. While he was on the road or in prison, Paul wrote letters to those first Christian communities, reminding them of what he had taught, correcting them, and encouraging them to live lives of holiness. St. Paul is really our model for going out and serving God and spreading the good news, the gospel of the Lord. Now, St. Paul shares his feast day with St. Peter on June the 29th. We know it in the church as the Feast of St. Peter and St. Paul.
St. Paul really is the perfect saint for today. You see, he's the one who went out and evangelized to those who didn't know God. He went out and evangelized to those who didn't even know the Jewish faith, the Gentiles, who believe something totally different. Now today, people are really exposed to the Christian faith, but a lot of people don't know what we actually teach here in the church. You see, they think they know, but they really don't. It's our job to go out and make disciples of all nations, to go out to the new Gentiles, to go out and show them what the church really teaches, to show them what we believe, and to introduce them to Christ. Remember, Christ and our relationship with Him is the bedrock of everything that we do. So until next week, thank you again, and I will see you soon.